Okay, so question 3 then. Who's got the next question?
Some of the children refuse to listen to me, so how could a core member gain lasting respect?
Difficult one, particularly in your early days in school. You will get that honeymoon period and that novelty value. You're all in a school that's new to City Year, and so there will be a bit of intrigue and interest. But once that honeymoon wears off, then there is that I don't need to listen to you. Who are you, red people? That kind of thing. And really, it is very much about setting a structure and setting boundaries. To get lasting respect is something that we all want, but I think if I turn it back on you and think, how do you gain respect from anybody outside of school? Think about the way you interact with people. Think about what you expect of yourself and of other people, and then put that into school. You're not far away. The difference is when you're dealing with young people, there's generally a greater immaturity. They're still developing, and many of those children are approaching or in the middle of adolescence, which does change body and mind. It does make them test boundaries. So we have to put structure in place. I've talked to you about the 4 R's. If they're refusing to listen or show you respect, then in a way you do the same. Now, not by dissing them, ignoring them, or being rude to them, but we have to explain quite clearly, you want to be listened to. That works both ways. If you want to have your rights lived up to and supported, you have to show some level of responsibility to earn that right. We can do this together. I'm here to help you. If you don't want to be helped, there's only so much I can do. So you can walk away. Again, we come back to choice. And they can make the choice they want. But as I've said to you before, the only behaviour you can control is your own. By conducting yourself in a positive but assertive way, you are the role model you want to be. And with some children, that takes longer for them to listen to. But if they understand that, yep, they've got to show some responsibility, and if they do, they will get your attention, and they will want your attention, which is more important, because if they're not respecting you and they're not giving you the respect you need, often they're craving it, but they want to push those boundaries. You have to be a constant. You have to be the same, and if they won't respond to you when you're working with other children, they will still be noticing. They will be noticing how you interact. They will be noticing that other children respond to you. And it may take time, but they will come around to that. Once you get a bit of a conversation going, you find common ground. If you find out that someone's interested in a particular thing, a particular team, activity, type of music, particular band, or anything where you can find a bit of common ground, without forcing it, try a bit of conversation. And then when they get talking and they realise you know a little bit about this, it can be quite a stimulus. Then you can turn that towards work. But the key thing is to get a hook into them so that they can see that you're a professional, but you're interested in them, and you're also quite cool as well in your own way because you're half the age of a lot of the teachers. And that does make a difference to some of the children because they then see you as an ally, as an advocate, and they will respect. But it will take longer. There is no quick way. You can't go in and in your City Year uniform and instantly expect all the children to be on side. Some will be easy. In fact, some will probably want too much of your attention, and you have to balance that too. But you can get it if you are constant, if you have that professionalism, that assertiveness, you're seen to be fair, you're seen to be consistent. There are some other things that you can do. For example, there are some strategies and tactics such as partial agreement. They might say the children might say to you, oh, I did this because Mr. So-and-so let me do it. Maybe they did. You're not going to say, no, he didn't, or I don't care what Mr. So-and-so says. You're going to, maybe he did, but when you're around me, we don't run in the corridor. That's our school rule, so please don't run in the corridor. So you're not putting anyone else down, you are just explaining that I'm not going to disagree with you, but I'm saying, but when you're in this environment, this is what I expect. And that, done through that kind of approach, can make them listen. Maybe not the first time or the second, but by the third time, they will understand that, because you're never going to be any different. You'll always be, perhaps, on that corridor at the change of lesson. You'll always be there. You're always going to say the same thing, and you're always going to smile politely afterwards. That will eventually get respect. One of the biggest things that gets anyone respect is constancy and consistency and fairness. If you are always those three things, you're always there, you're always acting the same way, and you're always honest and fair, that has to be respected in life, no matter who the children are. So those things are key. What's question 4?
How do I know when to take action against questionable behaviour?
Right, okay. I think prioritising is really important here. When you look, you're not Action Man or Wonder Woman. I'm sure you are in some ways, but you can't be charging around school, tapping down every little problem. So it is about prioritising. And one of the things in and out of class that we have to look at is noise, for example. It can be working noise. Working noise is good. It can be healthy. I'll give you a little anecdote. Not that long ago, maybe 5 or 6 years ago, I was teaching a history class, and next door to me was a newly qualified teacher teaching a history class, and I'm teaching my class, and the noise next door was horrendous, and I thought, oh my goodness, that poor teacher is really having a hard time. I thought, my class were quiet. I said, right, I'm going next door. Do not let me down. You know what work you have to do. I went next door. The teacher is stood on the table, and the children are all shouting from different sides of the room. And I just thought, oh my goodness, what is going on? And I knocked the door and went in, and I said, Miss Evans, is everything okay? And she said, oh yes, it's fine, Mr. Higginson, that's fine. Okay, so I closed the door, they went quiet, I went back in, the noise went up again. Got through the lesson, at the end I went next door, and what they were doing, they were having a discussion about the Magna Carta. She was King John, she had a crown, she was King John in the middle, and she had one set of barons on one side of the room, and one set of barons on the other side of the room, and they were arguing about what the rules would be. It was working noise. The children had engaged. She had a lively, difficult class, but it was structured, it was engaged, and they learned from it. And she had a great time as well. And because she was she probably shouldn't have been on the table, health and safety. But she was there, up there on her throne, and they were having their discussion. And it was great. So coming back to the point of when to intervene, we have to look at what's happening on the playground. Play is good. We just have to start to see, when is it starting to get a bit too rough? When is it starting to get unacceptable? Is there abusive language involved? Is it going beyond the boundaries that are acceptable? And similarly, prioritising, very importantly, is it dangerous? Is it actually dangerous? Because that's your first thing. If anyone is at risk, teacher, pupil, anyone else, if anyone's at risk, that has to be dealt with straight away. But with questionable behaviour, deal with the things that matter. Is it something that you've got to stop straight away? Is it something you can keep an eye on? There are some things where you need silence, and we have to insist upon that. There are some things where working noise is good. There are some things where play and a little bit of flexibility within the structure is good. But the key thing, coming back to something I said earlier, relaxed vigilance. So you are always on duty, you are always watching, and if things do go from structured to very unstructured to probably unacceptable, we're already on the move because we've seen the signs, we've seen the change in the weather, and we're ready to be able to deal with that. And if we're in that position of being relaxed, vigilant, on our way, getting involved, it hasn't reached a crisis. And that's when we're dealing with behaviour that's sort of on the verge of, is it naughty, is it not? We can begin to get into there and proactively, often with humour, calm it down, settle it down, Do you need any help with your work? Is quite a good one because it instantly focuses most of the children on what they're doing and they realise they should be working and not talking. But that relaxed, vigilant approach makes a huge difference if you are watching what's going on. Keep a perspective. Remember, they are young people, and particularly at unstructured time, there are schools where we have to have really rigid regimes, even when it's playtime. Playtime is called playtime for a reason. Play is a good thing. Children need to let off steam. But one other tip I would give for city year, at the end of break and lunchtime, one of the best roles you can take is just before the bell, start walking in with the children and talking about whatever you want. But so they don't wait for the bell and then either charge in or hide so they don't have to go to lessons. Actually begin to round up the children, particularly if they're the usual suspects, the kind of focus list children that you might be working with who might be on the cusp of some of the naughtiness. Begin to chat to them, and as you're chatting, walk in and they walk with you. They're in the building thinking about work before you know it. It's a distractive behaviour, but it's really good at getting punctuality good and getting them back on focus. So they've had that 15 minutes to let off steam, but you know that it's no good waiting till the bell. Just before the bell, calm them, talk to them, start walking in. And you're doing the teachers a huge favour. They are much more learning ready. That's a really proactive way of preventing any questionable behaviour or overly lively behaviour after break or lunchtime.